everybody, welcome back to the Claremont Classic Garage. We've got the 16-foot float on the back of the old Ram 2500 here, and we're off to Moorfield, Ontario to pick up something we bought at the auction. So you can see here we've bought this Oliver 550. This is a gas one. It's like, look at this, it's original paint. And mostly we bought it because of this. Brand new tires on the back. And these things, because they're those, and new wheels too, because they're these oddball 26-inch wheels. These tires are 750 bucks a piece. So I got this tractor for $1,150. Now, and you can see somebody's been looking after it. It's got all new tune-up parts. It's got a new tack cable. Somebody's been looking after this. Let's see what's going to happen here. Oh, the seat's just as bad as mine. Which is the choke? I think that's the choke. Yeah, that's lights. Okay, so give her a little throttle and see if she'll go. Okay, we're loaded up, we're homebound. See you back at the ranch. Okay, let's see what happens now. It wouldn't start when we were at the auction site. The farmer actually came and told me, yeah, it floods real easy. If you, like on a warm day like this, don't give it choke when you crank it over, which I did. So anyway, it's been drying out, hopefully on the way home. And we'll see if we can get this sucker to go. Oh, let me open the fuel. I think it's here. Yeah, okay. There, fuel's open. Let's see if she'll go. Come on, baby. I got the exhaust pipe off of it because it was loose. It's got a strong battery, I'll tell you that. Nah, she don't want to go. So I guess I'll take the plugs out and see if I can dry them. So you can see here we got a bunch of gas. I think maybe we've got a stuck float. Possibly. We haven't got the choke pulled. The choke is off. All right, well, we'll try it again. It's in neutral. It'll be hell to dry her out now. Let me get the plugs out. So it's still dripping out of there. So I guess I'm gonna have to. I'll just push it off. We'll have to take the carburetor apart and make sure there's nothing wrong in there, and then try again. I took all the plugs out of this thing, and they're black, but they're dry. So we'll clean them and put them back in. But in the meantime, I want to do a couple of electrical checks. So what we're going to do first is put the ignition on, right? And we're going to check first for power in and out of the resistor. So there's power out. So obviously we have power in. Now we're going to check the points. This here is the point side of the coil. All right. And we're going to turn the engine over a little bit and see. I think I need my tripod. Okay, there we go. So what we're going to do, we can test the points by simply turning it over with the test light on here. And if the points are working, we'll see the test light flicker. There we go. We can also see down here plenty of sparkies coming out of the coil. Now we've got our spark tester in line with number 1 cylinder, and we're going to make sure that the spark is going through the cap into the rotor and out to the high tension leads. Let's check that. Okay, that's good. So what we'll do now, we'll get the manual out, see what the gap is supposed to be on those plugs, get them cleaned up, gap properly, and back in. Another thing I noticed that when we were cranking it, we didn't have fountains of fuel coming out here. That's another good sign. The plugs are cleaned. I checked the gap, 25 thou. That's they were pretty close, but I regapped them, put them back in. I confirmed that the firing order is correct. 1, 3, 4, 2. That's good. What we're going to do now is pop the cap off. And even though we could see our light flicking that the points were opening and closing, we're just going to pop the cap off, have a look at them, and make sure that they're gapped correctly. The point gap was a little bit wide. So we adjust it by loosening the lock screw here. And this here is a cam. You can see here there's an oval hole. And this is like an eccentric. And you turn that, and that's how you adjust the points. So the manual says 22 thousandths. And that's what we've got now. A nice 22 thousandths gap. It was probably about 30 when we started. It should probably still work like that. But now we know it's what it's supposed to be. Well, at least on that lobe. And now you can see there, we'll also make sure the advance mechanism is free. That's good. At this point, if we wanted to, we could pull this inspection cover over and roll the thing up. There is a mark on the back of the flywheel, a pointer inside the block. And we could find top dead center and make sure this is pointing at number 1. But the fellow told me the thing runs after I bought and paid for it, so I don't think he really had any reason to lie to me. So we're going to assume that that is okay. I'll put all this back together, and we're going to dive into the carburetor, because I think that's where our trouble is. So we got the carburetor off. It's a large body Marvel, Schlebeler, large body Marvel. Everything seems to be nice and free on it. It's very similar to the smaller ones that I'm used to on my Fords. With one exception, it does not have the adjustable power screw. There's your idle mixture screw, but the power screw, the external one we have on a Ford, is not there. So we'll see inside what it looks like. I'm interested in the float setting and having a look at the needle and seat. There's not too much junk inside there. We will blow it all out and get it cleaned up so we could start over again. Somebody has been in here before us. But what I do see, look at that. These floats are way high. They should be like that. And that explains why this thing is overflowing all the time when you're cranking it and trying to run it. That is a very large part of our problem. So let's just pop this baby apart and see what we see. I mean, it's possible, like, with the floats the way they are, the needle was probably barely closing. Like, that's the problem with these Land of Almost Fits parts. Yeah, I'll show you what I was concerned about. It looked almost like the float was contacting the actual brass part there before it would be able to put pressure on the needle valve. I think what I'm going to do, just for my peace of mind, I'm going to take this apart and I'm going to tweak this in here just to give it a little more room so we know 100% that part of the float, the frame of the float, can in fact push on the needle valve and close this thing. That's better. Now we know 100% the needle valve can push against the seat and shut the fuel off. Now we're going to look in our manual and find the correct float setting. The float setting on this thing is a 1/4 inch. So what we do is we get a 1/4 inch drill bit underneath there, and you can see how it lifts it up. So what we got to do is bend it a little bit. Whoops, sorry. So to bend it, you grab it there, you hold it there, and just tweak it a bit. There, see there how it just touches? Good. Now we got to do the same on the other side. Went a little too far on this one. There, you see there, it just touches. Good. That's perfect. Okay, so now we learned something new. Now I know where all the gas is coming from. This carburetor does have the adjustable power screw, except it's in the bottom. And as you can see, it's all missing. I'm not quite sure what we're going to do with that. It looks like here, like it's busted off. I think that's where the assembly screws in. So we're going to see if we can get this stuff out of here and try to find out if we can source some parts for it. There's the main jet, and then the adjuster goes in the bottom here and regulates what goes through that main jet into the main nozzle here. So you can see here, this is the entire power screw assembly. And this little bit that I managed to unscrew is all we have of it. So, and you can see here, it's hard to see, but you can see there where it's been busted off. So we've got a little project. We have to try and figure out how to deal with this. Our adjustable main jet has finally arrived. So we found a gasket because after all that waiting, the stupid thing didn't come with a gasket. Lucky we had one. So we've got the mating surfaces tidied up. So we're just going to screw it in. So I'll just kind of not over tighten it, just tighten it enough to crush the gasket. And as far as a base adjustment goes, any screw on a carburetor, you're pretty safe with bottom it out and then turn it out 1.5 turns. That's a good starting point for anything. So there's a half, 1.5. That should have us in the ballpark. Now we can put this back together and get it back on the tractor. Okay, so now it's a little tricky getting this thing up. We've got to get the choke hooked up, and then we've got to fish it into this tube because unfortunately the hose is so hard now, you can't really put the hose on after the carburetor is on. And we've got to get the linkage. We've got to get the linkage hooked up at the same time. So I don't know. We'll figure it out. I'm going to start with the choke, I guess. All right. After a little struggling, we got her all back together. I'm not tightening these clamps until I know we're done. You can see here this big, huge vacuum fitting on the side here. I guess that means at some point they've been using this engine to run a milking machine. They used to have vacuum-powered milking machines that they use in the barns, and you could power it off off of one of these. That's why there's a lot of old gasoline tractors around, I guess, because you couldn't do this with a diesel because they don't make manifold vacuum. So now what we're going to do is put some gasoline in this thing and open the valve and see what happens. I put some fuel in it Now I'm going to open this up and we'll see if we see any fuel. Yeah, there it goes. It's flowing. So it should be going down into the carburetor now. And hopefully we're not going to see a bunch of fuel all over the ground. So far. Well, here we go. I don't see anything leaking, so give it some throttle, give it some choke, and we'll see what happens. Maybe I won't give it choke. We'll just crank it over and see what happens. Well, that was a great success. It started. The carburetor needs obviously some monkeying with it. It runs kind of choppy, and the exhaust is leaking all over the place. So I'm going to get those couple of things buttoned up now, and then we'll get her outside and see what we can learn about it. Okay, I got the exhaust buttoned up. I think I'm going to tighten the clamps on those hoses down because it looks like they can stay there. And then, you know what I should do? I should see if there's any oil in this thing. And then we'll get it outside. By the big puddle on the floor here, it's leaking something. I bet it's the PTO seal in the front of the transmission. In which case, it'll just leak. So we're going to give this thing, if we decide this is a usable tractor, it's not going to just get parted out. We'll give it a clean up and service it all from front to back and make sure it's good for whatever it's going to end up doing. Let's just have a fast look and make sure there's oil in it. Yeah, and it's like brand new. Not all full of gas either. That's the one thing with these old updraft carburetors. They're a brilliant design. It's really hard to get the crankcase all full of gasoline. They work quite well. Okay, let me see if I can get this thing outside. That'll be the next step, I guess. We'll find out if the clutch works. Okay. What? Come on. Clutch needs adjusting or something. Okay, let's see if we can get this thing running a little better. Let me grab a screwdriver. That's interesting. Definitely something not right in the carburetor. The idle screw is completely closed. That's the belt making all that squeaking. Oh, we're gaining on it. We'll fiddle about with it. It's just an engine. Alright, you can see here, no matter what we do, we can't get this thing to idle anything below 1,000 RPM and it just quits. You can see we've got low vacuum and it's jumping all around like that. That's an indication we've got problems in the cylinder head. This thing needs a valve job. It might have a burnt exhaust valve. It might have broken valve springs like our diesel had. There's only one way to find out. We got to get in there and see what's up. And on top of all that, it doesn't seem to charge. But we'll have a go at that. We gave it a compression test, and well, you can't ask for better than that. So I guess my theory of a burnt valve or something is out the window. It's bizarre. So we're just gonna have to. Now that doesn't mean the valves are adjusted correctly. I'm still gonna pull the valve cover off and see what we can find in there. But it doesn't look too bad, does it? And I guess we'll have to completely go over everything, all the ignition. I'll probably have to take the carburetor apart again and double check everything in there. We'll get to the bottom of it. Once I get the hood off, I can look in the dash here. There is wires hanging all over the place, like this light socket. Who knows what that's even for? Yeah, we got some work to do in here. So I'm kind of glad that we had to take this all apart. We'll get in here. We'll get this fuel tank off. And then we can get the valve cover off and see what we got. Here we are. Something else I guess I should have considered while I was still out there is that the we could have a leak where the manifold is bolted onto the head. Well, we'll have to check that after. But for now, we got this. I got the breather pipe loosened off, and then we'll just give this a smack and get it freed up. The gasket, yee. Anyway, we'll see how that works out. We're in here, and the first thing I'm happy to report, I don't see any broken valve springs. That's good. That was the problem, if you remember, on our 550 diesel. So what we're going to do now is go ahead and we're going to turn it over. We're going to check the lash on all these valves, and that's about it, I guess, and we can put it back together. I have to look up in the book and see what the lash should be. The gas engine may have a different spec than the diesel. So these ones we're going to set to, according to the book, 10 on the intakes and 16 on the exhaust. So the intakes are these two and these two. So we got number one done. So what we'll do now is, the fired motor is, I think, 1, 2, 4, 3. Let me double check. So this thing is 1, 2, 4, 3. So what we've done is we've turned it until the rotor there is pointing at number 2. So we know number 2 is about to fire, so we can adjust the valves on number 2. So let's check our intake. Pretty loose. Check the exhaust. Also pretty loose. So we'll tighten them up and lock them back down. So first thing we're going to do is loosen both these jam nuts. Oh, they're tight. And then these adjuster screws will probably be stuck in there. There we go. They get stuck in over time. I bet you this thing's never been adjusted. There we are. So what we're going to do, now you don't want to get mixed up because they flip as you go back, right? So this one here is an intake, so we're going to set it to 10. So what I normally do with these is I slowly turn this thing down until it starts to catch, you feel, you know, decent friction on your gauge. And then when you tighten the jam nut, it'll kind of loosen it up a bit. That's perfect. And same thing with the exhaust now. We got our 16 in the exhaust. That one wasn't as loose. The intake was quite loose. Loose is better than tight, but still not ideal. Yeah, that's when you're done, you want to feel just a bit of drag, but not like loose and not tight so that you have to, that valve is just right. Okay, so what we'll do, we'll continue on. Next in the order will be number 4, then we'll do number 3, and I'll be back. All the valves are adjusted. I'm going to roll it over once again and just double check them all and make sure we're good, and then we'll button it up and on to the next thing. Well, that'll do it for this one. We've still got quite a bit more to do, but this one's starting to run a little bit long, so I'm going to end it here, and we'll continue in the next one. We've got the distributor to go through. I'm going to go through the carburetor again, Make sure the manifold is sealed up nicely. And we've got a lot of other electrical problems, like it's not charging. There's that mess in the dash. We got lots to do. So I'll see you then. I'd like to thank you for tuning into our little channel. Hope we'll see you next time. And until then, I'm Kevin saying so long from the Claremont Classic Garage.